Hello everyone. I know this is always abrupt. I never give you guys enough timing to when I do one of these talks, but I did warn you a couple months ago that they were going to take place whenever Spirit was motivating me, and I was going to try and do them consistently. And since our last talk, which was all about love and the desired love that we seek, I had an accident. There was an accident on my bike. I love riding bike. Unfortunately, the person was drunk. It was on my lane, coming opposing traffic. And looked like he was going to move, but he didn't, and wound up hitting me. And I was severely injured. My left jaw was swollen and I couldn't talk, and my hands were hurting. And how would something like this happen to somebody who was doing good in the world? Well, shitty things happen to good people. And it happens every day, unfortunately. Every day, I do believe I have mentioned this on some of my talks. I start off with a prayer, and I end the day with a prayer for safety for myself and other people, and good upon the world. But hey, humans have free will, right? Humans will do whatever humans want to do. And even the angels can protect us sometimes. They can do their best. And in this case, the angels, Archangel Michael, who always is with me, and other protective guides, they just made the injury here, and not too impactful. Nothing got broken. I just got bruised. My hand got bruised. Nothing got broken. Him, on the other hand, drunk and not really conscious, was thinking that he got hit by a car, and he was unconscious for about 15 minutes, even upon the ambulance and the police coming to his rescue. And I was fully conscious to really see, what was happening, and aware of his reactions. And he was bleeding, and his skull was cracked open, and he was in the middle of an intersection. We both were. And I'm not saying that, he got his just reward, what he deserved, and I'm retelling the story to show you that, due to his actions, this is what happened. He injured an innocent person who was doing exactly what they were supposed to be doing, and he was not doing what he should have been doing, which was going on the other side of the street with, traffic, going with the traffic, not against the traffic. So when he came to, he said, like, a car hit me, when the police and ambulance people, the EMS people, had asked. So there you have it. Why I have not been talking as much online and having my talks with you all. And I've been postponing also my forecast for the next upcoming months, which I had made a post earlier today that I will be doing the forecast this Sunday, hopefully at 11 a.m. if you all agree to it. If I, so far I have not heard any oppositions, so I will go forward, and until somebody says something otherwise, I will have the live recording of the forecast for the rest of the year, part 2, this Sunday. Forewarning you now, I'm not going to go in depth with his forecast. What I am going to do is that I will be surmising each month and taking any questions and answering them. I will hold off to giving you an in-depth look at each month through a blog post. So for now, Sunday will be interactive. It won't be as lengthy as the last one, and it will be just a summary for each month, and in total the year. So with that being said, I'm going to go back to the topic of healing and cycles of life, the life cycles. So I think that it's no coincidence, and you guys know that I don't believe in coincidence today, that I started off this talk talking about my accident. So recently, a lot of you also have sent in messages regarding the whole Orlando shooting and what I thought about it, and where have I been, and if I've been okay, and thank you for your concern, and thank you for asking me on my thoughts on the Orlando shooting. Now, for self-healing purposes, I stayed away from commenting and sharing anything on this fan page regarding the Orlando shooting, just because I was very sensitive during that moment in time and still healing from my accident, and I'm a very sensitive person, and all I can do was just pray. And like I said before, shitty things happen to even the best of us. So life is always going to be life, and if you remember, and if you haven't watched it yet, go watch the beginning part of the forecast for this year, where I spoke about giving and receiving, and how we must give without expecting, and how no matter what cards have been dealt in our lives, we should always have a level of acceptance over our life and our life circumstance, and know that as we give, we will be receiving, that life will provide for us. And that happens under a structure that has been pre-existing for countless of years, ages. We of the American Indian societies and communities and cultures, we see this as cycles of life, universal law, law that is unrefuted. So there's laws of creation, right? So you have the universal laws of creation, man and woman equals child, female male species equals creation or procreation, right? So you see that in all of the kingdoms, and these universal laws are laws that you see in all kingdoms of species here on planet Earth and throughout the galaxy, throughout the universe. There is the life and death of stars, of galaxies. There is the life and death of oceans, lakes, and rivers. So the list goes on and on and on. But these laws, which are governed by higher powers or a higher power, whoever or however you believe in it, govern these cycles, so to speak. So these laws have cycles. Manifestation. You can say that the creation of a child is part of a manifestation. It all started with a thought, right? A loving thought, hopefully, in most cases. And that thought birthed action, and then you have creation. Cycles in life, and this is something I've been guided to talk about, because I really didn't have a clue what I was going to be saying here, happen not because we're, let's say, victims, or we're powerless over these cycles, the universal laws of attraction, universal laws of do no harm or do no evil, do unto others what you want done unto you, repercussions. We're not held, we're held accountable, so to speak, in some ways, or this is a way of holding us accountable for what we do. Free will. Let's go back to that again. So, free will, every man has, and every woman has, every person has the ability to do whatever they want on this earth, right? And for the most part, there are very bad people out there getting away with very bad things. And raise your hands. How many of us as children got away with bad things? Though, I don't really believe in children, who are perfect. So, we learn through our mistakes. And so again, we have free will. Those mistakes have cycles to them too. So in making mistakes, we have the ability to right them. Again, giving and receiving. I hope you're all following me on here with this talk. So through mistakes, through acts of also, you could call them good or bad or evil. There's no one judge, let's say universal judge, that will come down and strike you with lightning. That's yet to be seen, but in retrospect, that relationship you have, we all have this relationship with a higher power. That judge, so to speak, is a very private judge. And only those who are privy that you allow into your circle may see that or catch a glimpse of that in your life. So-and-so, this happens to so-and-so because so-and-so was doing X, Y, and Z. And universe, so law, caught up with that person, right? So there's a cycle to that. There's a middle. Well, there's the start, there's the middle, and there's the end. Let's go back to life, creation of life, manifestation. There is the beginning, there is the middle, and there's the end. There's the journey, there's the path, there's the unfolding, the blossoming of flowers. Starts off through germination, and that germination comes from a reaction to chemicals found in the earth. Through, the right moments where a seed is planted somewhere in the ground, and through cycles of time, the seed becomes a plant, a tree, fruit, and it has a lifespan, which goes through a cycle. So in light of the events that have happened recently to myself and to others, let's say in Orlando, there have been more incidents that have been occurring since then. Very tragic incidences. There is a cycle. We have humans, our own judicial system, police, clergymen, president, the FBI, the CIA, who already have been put into a place of power and structure, and to govern, to also to help us have some order in our communities and our lives, as a country, as a world, and they have their own cycles through timing. We have but they have, and these big structures also, they have their own, individually, their own lives, their own paths, their own journey, that have their own cycles that can go against universal law, as I have demonstrated already. So that's why things like astrology, the science of reading the effects of the cosmos onto us and we onto it as well, is so important. It's a type of measure that helped us, and it has helped our ancestors as well, native and non-native, to see how we can fit, our lives can fit into this big, big, big world of events, of other cycles. So astrology, you know, you can say maybe it's a form of spirituality, but really it's a science when it comes down to looking at it all. And a lot of people pursue it passionately because they have a spiritual calling and connection, a wanting to know more about, you know, how their lives will unfold or is unfolding, or how the planets, their cycles, their orbits. I will try to post this video that I have on this will clearly illustrate how the orbits are cycles and not like loops around the sun. And how the sun itself and our solar system moves like a galaxy cycling through the Milky Way. And so we look up to astrology to help us to really, you know this energy that we're under and we're feeling, and how to best approach life as a Taurus, as a Aquarius, as a Leo, as a Sagittarius, as a Capricorn, a Virgo, and the list goes on and on. But when we look at world events, look what's happening in our lives. Libra, I'm sorry I missed you, Libra. I see you, Iris. Thank you. We have to really see that, you know, there is a supreme divine order behind it all that is not catching up to us, or we're catching up to it. It's living with us. So we have a symbiotic relationship to these universal laws, these cycles. And not all of our cycles, you know, are meant to be one, because if they were one, we would be, you know, we wouldn't really exist. I think personally we'll be living in the time of the giants. Of the times of the dinosaurs, so to speak. But so when we look at our lives, we look at the cycles of our lives. You know, things that have come and gone, things that are not just things that still haven't come into our lives that we're seeking, or we feel like we deserve certain things to work themselves out in our lives and in you know, the earth, let's say, in the world. We have to be patient. You know, we can act, which is good, in different ways. But again, there is a process, and just like there is a process with life, death, and rebirth, I believe in rebirth severely. Life, let's say birth, life, and death. That path is its own cycle, and it has its own story to itself in reaction to everything else that goes around it. So healing also is a process and is a cycle. I myself, and it's up to you to determine your own thoughts on this, but these are my thoughts. Life, if you really choose to see it, is a process of healing. We are given birth, we cry. Most children cry at birth, if you ever seen a birth happen. You know, they come in, we come into the world through the womb of the mother. We are raised as children. There are things that we don't really understand. We make mistakes and we learn. In healing, we have, you know, the cut, the wound, the injury. And then that's a process where we kind of stumble if we don't have the right healers or the teachers to teach us how to heal in life. And you can say that, you know, sometimes we don't have the best parents, the best healers growing up. And we become adults and we learn in our adult age that, you know, we're still healing. There's still a lot of things that we're still processing. They're, you know, in all levels. And we're still finding out more about ourselves, more about this vehicle that we're in, called a body. And those who dedicate themselves to a life of healing, a life of spiritual living, a life of, I don't want to say purity, but at least of mindfulness, start to understand that they're much more than what has transpired up until that point of awareness, of awakening. So that in itself is a process, it's a cycle. Sometimes some people have to go through great levels of pain to get there. Some people have to witness horrific events in life in order to actually understand that. And sometimes we don't need that. Sometimes it could be a simple, beautiful sunset that after a long, weary journey of muck or maybe a couple of really grateful, buttery incidents in life that help us to understand that we are loved, or we deserve that recognition. We come to that understanding. Wow, you know, like this high, this state of bliss awakens us to this life lesson that we're more, especially if it humbles you. Will actually teach you and show you that life is infinite, and it just doesn't stop with bills. It doesn't stop with how much we make, how much this society that we live in reflects back onto us. Sometimes we have to move away from, and sometimes that's the cycle as well, of reflection. You know, our immediate circle, people, places, and things that reflect to us what is healthy, what is good, what is spiritual, what is real. So, yeah, that's right, Iris. You really have to sometimes analyze yourself. But I think analyze is like, when it comes to analyzation, there's a list that we have, and you have to check that list. Sometimes you have to look and feel. We have to feel our way through. So with that, I think I've talked enough on this topic of healing and life cycles. You can look at your life cycles, the life cycles of everything in the world, in the universe, as some beautiful healing that's transpiring. I like to also see it as, you know, past the beginning, again, life, well, birth, life, and death, as the past, present, and future. And as you come in through that path, you're cycling through life, you have what? You have a story. You have a story that you're creating. There's this, your life, your future really is transpiring as you're going through. And as the old timers would say in my family, and I think this happens around the world, you have certainties in life. And those certainties is birth and death. And death is definitely certain. One uncertainty, which I love to talk about a lot, and I'll save that for another talk, is reincarnation. So if the trees can do it, plants can do it, why can't humans? They come from a life force, just like we do. Think about that one. So in light of world events, and which will continue, we as manifestors, co-creators in life, have cycles. And there are cycles that are playing about that we do not understand and we cannot control, and we shouldn't control. We should just live our lives. And we should live our lives as best as possible and always learn, especially from our mistakes. And that's why I have that motto. Love more and fear less. Love more and fear less. If we love more and fear less, we'll be really wanting more of what's happening. Life, acceptance, giving, receiving. I don't want to wake up today. I don't want to go to work. I do not like my job. I have to find a new job. Oh, I do not like the state I am in. I do not know where to go. Where am I going? I do not like where my life is at. I do not like the fact that I still haven't been paid what I deserve. I've done so much. See where I'm going with this? So that in itself also is a healing state, and we all must acknowledge it, and we all have to learn. We have to figure out a way, or really that way is really figuring out who we are in those moments in time. That's why I always suggest a journal. It's always good to reflect, have a support network, people that we will reflect to us, people, places, and things. The reality, truth. So again, the only judge that we have is us and our higher power. Those sins, those mistakes, those things that, the evil that we create, the good that we create goes we may think it goes unseen, but through life cycles, karma also, we know through our experience, through experiencing life on life's terms, that we're not alone, and there is this higher force that's always listening, and it's always giving. So I think I'm gonna end it right there. That feels good and solid, but I'm just gonna give you guys a little more extra, and I think this talk is just perfect with the forecasts for the rest of the year that I'm going to be giving this Sunday. I got 2 new decks, and I talked about them at the beginning of the week as gifts to myself from the universe. Here is a butterfly deck, which I fell in love with when Doreen Virtue brought it out and made it public a couple of months ago or a month ago. And this is what it looks like, the Butterfly Oracle. And if you know me, some of you listeners and viewers here know me very well, I love butterflies. So I'm gonna give you guys a message from the butterfly to end this reading, this talk with, and to actually punctuate. what the universe really is trying to say through this talk, these expressions that I've been giving today. So, I think this is just perfect. The card, you are stronger, you are more stronger than you know, or you are stronger than you know. I think it's perfect. I think it's perfect for anyone who does a stamp of approval, and anyone who's going through anything, and I'm sure a lot of us are going through something right now. This is an acknowledgement that whatever we're going through at the moment is only temporary. That just as delicate and sensitive people that we are, humans, and especially to world events such as the Orlando tragedy and people that are always getting away with making mistakes or just doing evil or bad in the world, we're strong enough to go through the cycles of our lives. Sometimes things that we go through really, like, things that drudge up a lot of like inside of us are just transformative points in our life to just push us through further in our life path, in our journey. And I believe wholeheartedly, as a young person, I was taught not to fear death. Death is just another phase. And you know, death can come in many different levels in our lives. Sometimes we can be gripped with fear that makes us feel and fear on a more higher level than we should, because there is the uncertainty of life. It's ferocious. It can be really, it can feel debilitating because we don't know what's happening and we have no control over it, and we wish we would. And sometimes it can feel like death, and sometimes we can become very stagnant and sometimes brain dead. So be careful, you know, just realize that these are transformative times in our lives. And sometimes things like things like astrology, tarot, oracle cards, spiritual healers, clergy people, can be very soothing and can be guides in our lives to help us get to that point of realizing that we need to see that this is all in our heads and in our hearts, and we need to move, and we need to live. We need to go about that process, that cycle, and become the better versions of ourselves when we get to that point of whatever that point may be. And it's okay not to have the answers. It's okay not to know. But as we reflect on our own life experiences and those gripping moments of fear, as an adult, we should really know. We've been there before. And, you know, this is just another phase in life. Another gift that I've been given this week is a second deck, which oracle cards, which I love, by Doreen Virtue again. And I fell in love with this deck. I do not speak of Jesus as much as some of you probably would like me to or would like to hear. But many of you don't know this, but I really love Jesus. I really love Jesus. I grew up with the teachings of Jesus through my Roman Catholic mom. She's also native, but we grew up with the teachings of Jesus through the Roman Catholic Church. Not that I really believe in a lot of the acts against Native people that have occurred in our lifetime in the name of God and instruction, and things that continue to happen like that, I have a different understanding of Jesus today. And especially against gay people and transgender people. I don't believe those people who do evil in the name of Jesus. Jesus has loving words, as this oracle deck really brings out and shows us through the Gospels of John, of Matthew, and several others. And so I'm going to pull out a card from here as well to give us another stamp, confirmation, and some things to think about as well on these topics that we've been talking about. And then I'll get to some of the comments that I see have been posted in the chat room here. So I'm going to shuffle a deck here. I'm going to ask Jesus Christ, Jeshua, to really give us a clear message, comforting words to help us digest these messages that come through. And I always, before I even start the camera, I do a prayer and I call in my guides and the angels to help also in giving clear messages and messages of truth and honesty in these talks. So, this is from the, I pulled out the card from the Gospels of Luke, and one of the verses is, "Blessed are they that hear the word of God and keep it." God, universal force, the creator, whatever name it takes form, is a loving God. And if we live in truth, if we really understand the truth of our lives, of our cycles, of our healing, there's a Roman Catholic saying that no one's born without sin. I feel like this goes right back to that. You know, we all come to this world to work something out, to express and shine our light, and to love each other, to really understand each other in our life walks, and understand our cycles, so that we can fulfill life on life's terms. We have to take the good and the bad together. And we also have to listen to our hearts, our higher power, our instincts, our intuition. God, when divine intervention comes in and says, you know, step back from the media. You're consuming too much of it. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means that you need to stay focused. As this is what my guides were giving me as the Orlando shooting had happened. The day before the Orlando shootings, I couldn't sleep. And whenever I can't sleep and I feel like my energy is hypersensitive, strange things happen in the world. Like the first witnessing that I had of that is when the flooding of the Fukushima power plant in that area of Japan had happened. I couldn't sleep that day. I could not sleep. I felt like I was wired, tapped into something higher than myself. And there's been great earthquakes that also have happened ever since then, and great tragedies in the world that I would get that hypersensitivity and couldn't sleep. So, you know, understanding who we are and our divine purpose and our divine selves, and the intuitive guidance that we get, especially from the gut area, is really important. It's really important that sometimes we take a break from social media and from the news, especially when you have your fill or you're having a hard time in life. We must take care of ourselves. We must heal. Doesn't mean that we don't care less. We can always do prayers. There's a Confucius saying, it's better to light a candle than to curse the darkness. When the Orlando shooting had happened, it was gay pride here the next day, and I had this gripping fear while I was at the pride parade. I had not even heard about the Orlando shooting, so I really didn't know what was going on. And I think I had like maybe 3 hours of sleep. I finally had like some sleep. And then a friend of mine texted me while I was in the parade, walking the parade, and she was concerned for me, and she brought up the whole Orlando shooting that happened the night before. So I was in shock after that, and I had time to think about it. I didn't watch the news. I knew that my heart would just like hurt if I did, and I really wasn't in a space or could afford to waste my energy that way. So what I did was I prayed for those lives. I actually lit a candle, because in my mind and in my heart, I was not in the space to really lend an ear and eyes to the stories. And then when I felt better, then I did. Then I turned on the TV, I turned on the news, I watched, I read, and my heart went out to them, and I was much more stronger to deal with that and to deal with my life. And to deal with my own healing, as I spoke of earlier, the accident I had a couple of weeks before that. So, we all must understand our cycles, and we all must, heed which the messages that we get from God, that we get from our higher power, that we get from Jesus. And if you have any notion or inkling that you want to buy any of these oracles, especially the one of Jesus, the loving words of Jesus, from Jesus, I highly recommend it that you go out and do. So with that, I'm going to look and scroll through the chat room and read some of these comments, see if there are any questions. If you have any questions about this talk, anything you want me to clarify, any questions pertaining to this, go right ahead. This is the opportunity to post your questions here in the comment area. And if you're watching this after I have closed this chat, you can still post your questions. I will answer your questions. And if you want to send them personally, like privately, you can as well. I always enjoy reading your questions and answering them, or even the feedback that you give. So, Iris, thank you. You've been great. You've been just very supportive, and Megan also, of going along with what I'm saying and really understanding it clearly. And Megan says, absolutely, life is what we make it. Live it to its fullest. It took me a long time to realize that there is more to life than what I have already achieved. It's been long hours of journey, and it's not over yet. No, it's not over yet. It's not over for any of us. Aho. Thank you for sharing that, Megan. Iris says, I've learned who to choose to be in my circle of life. Very good. There's a saying, one of my mentors on my spiritual journey, especially as a medicine person, as a healer in the Native community, is that we must watch who we let into our personal space. It took me a long time to recognize what that personal space was. And I was the type of person, I was a people pleaser. I can be a people pleaser. And one of the ways that I would want I would get people to like me was that I would give too much of myself to them, personal information, which will allow people to really get in my headspace. And as a psychic and as a sensitive spiritual person, a human being, that is the worst thing you can do, especially to strangers you don't know. Those psychic bonds and connections could wreak havoc, especially with the wrong people. So it took me a long time of healing to really undo a lot of the harm that I allowed and caused in my life. And that's because I let a lot of undeserving people into my life to show me those lessons. So that's a good one. Thank you for bringing that up, Iris. Megan also says, I've always been afraid of death. That is the perfect way to look at that. Thank you. You're welcome. And you know, Megan, some of these concepts that I've talked about death also came through Jesus. And I will share this limitedly here, because I don't share it a lot with everyone, but in this setting, I think it's appropriate. I had a dream with Jesus that came to me once and said, why are you afraid of death? Literally, Jesus came to me in a dream and said, you should not be afraid of death. Death is nothing to be afraid of. And he turned into this falcon and became a Bible. It was a beautiful dream. It was the most beautiful dream, one of many that I've had in my lifetime. And that's also another reason why I look up to Jesus and I follow the words of Jesus. Jesus was a man and was just like as mortal as we, and was a healer, and was a prophet, was a loving person. And I wholeheartedly believe that with my connection to Spirit and Jesus. So nobody has any questions? I guess I was clear. The music is getting louder. I don't know if you witnessed that, and I think it's time for me to close this talk. This talk has become very long. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think this is my cue. Anyone? Any questions? If not, then I'm gonna say that this Sunday, Eastern Standard Time, at 11 in the morning. If you're interested in getting the second half of this year's forecast to the reading that I have made for the year, tune in. I was thinking about doing it with Google Hangouts, but if you guys prefer, I'll do it here. If you guys have no problem with Google Hangouts, let me know. Then I'll do it at Google Hangouts. I prefer to do it at Google Hangouts because there's no time constraints, no limits, as Facebook puts time limits here on their live recording and interaction as well. So on Google Hangouts, if you have a Gmail account, you can go in and Google Hangouts and participate there. And I could record for about 2-3 hours and also take questions and go back and forth with you guys. You're welcome, Iris. I'm glad you are benefiting from this. Iris says she's never done Google Hangouts. Okay, so if you've never done Google Hangouts, and I would highly suggest if you guys want to try it out, take some time after this or tomorrow, go check it out if you have a Gmail account. I believe you have to have a Gmail account in order to participate, but if you just want to watch, I don't think you need one. Otherwise, if you guys don't prefer Google Hangouts, then I'll do it here on Facebook. All right, so I'm gonna say good night, since no one has any questions. And thank you for tuning in, and thank you for supporting. May you co-create your lives in a beautiful way, always. And love more and fear less. Good night. And you're welcome. Thank you all for tuning in.